my next guest picked up a unanimous decision victory for PFL in Salt Lake City over Antonio Carlos Jr. And of course, is easy Alex Polizzi on the program. Alex, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. Nice to talk to you. And congrats on the win over a very tough opponent. Obviously with PFL, it's a little different. I'm just wondering, how the win, if it was tainted at all with you being eliminated from the playoffs.
You know, um, as cliche as it sounds, it's 0-0 every time we step in there. And a win, albeit maybe an ugly one, it's nice. And I, to get back onto the tournament kind of schedule, being knocked out of the playoffs, it came up a bit, and the question was raised, and I finally talked to my manager, like, hey, what does this mean? He's like, Alex. He gave me some good advice. He just said, let's enjoy the win for the weekend. We'll worry about the rest later when it comes down to it.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, you went in there and you beat a very well-rounded, tough fighter, a veteran, a guy that's been around there for a while. How would you assess your overall performance? Give me like a 1 to 10 scale.
You know, um, of course, to put it at a 10 is a little self-indulgent. There's always things that we can work on, but we followed the game plan. We made adjustments. I had great advice in not only my corners coaches, but some of my teammates back at Xtreme Couture, and I think that we performed well. We got out there and we did what we needed to do. So I'd say a solid 8 out of 10 performance.
Okay, that's good. What was the game plan specifically to get you ready for Antonio?
You know, anyone who's watched Tony before, he's a big jiu-jitsu guy, and which sometimes can not be great for an American style wrestler like myself. Some of those guys, they're waiting to get taken down because they're not afraid of the takedown, and they're waiting to enact their own offense against that wrestling takedown heavy off my offense. The plan was to keep him on that lead leg, keep attacking over there, making sure that with distance management and Shoeface has got a real good jab that is deceptively long, and it was to make sure that we were either all the way in, past where that jab could damage us, or all the way out so that he had to, get a little forward and then maybe we could fit underneath him. And then once we're in there, again, like I said, he's a jiu-jitsu practitioner, dangerous guy. When you lock up with him, the plan was to use that wrestling, to use that pressure, and instead of in a lot of my other fights, I'm trying to gain position and go forward and get my own. It was maybe to sit on him, to give him that weight, and to beat him up, give him a little bit of that ground and pound, and make sure that he wasn't going to go anywhere.
He did land a big right hand there in the first round. How much did that affect you?
I'd say 17 stitches later, it affected me a little bit. But this is what we do. Some punches here, some punches there. But really talking with my coaches and reviewing the film, um, stuff happens, and it's being able to adjust to those big punches, um, being able to adjust to those big punches, being able to adjust to those hits, those setbacks. That's gonna turn you to a better fighter.
It was really 17 stitches.
17 stitches. I don't know if you can see, but I still got a little bit above the eye.
Yeah.
You got some on the cheek and a couple miscellaneous ones.
Yeah. When you get rocked like that, how do you keep your composure and stay in it without allowing him to kind of follow up and land those combos to put the fight over? That's got to be a really difficult spot to be in, especially when you get clipped.
Yeah. Part of it is just having a big thick skull. But the other part is, and I've talked about this before, my background is American wrestling, and I mean there's no quit in American wrestling. um, and whether it's the gas tank, whether it's the constant pressure. And I take a lot more blows to the head now than I did in wrestling, but that doesn't mean that, we didn't get hit a couple times and little it's confusing. That's jarring. What's going on? And I have a coach in my corner like, doesn't matter, keep going.
Mhm.
And those words ring true here in MMA as well.
We've seen a lot of crazy judging decisions, to say the least. It's like every year there's more and more. How confident did you feel before you got your hand raised?
It's like it's always been said, it's never a good idea to leave it to the judges. If you can go out there and make sure it finishes, make sure it's stuck, that's best. However, you know, going back and even during the fight, I realized that the first round he got some good hits off. He got some good hits off. We were bleeding. But then at the second and third, I felt pretty confident finishing on top, having that control and making sure that he know I've said it before in some of my fights, win, lose, or draw, I'm trying to make sure that guy never wants to fight me again. When he thinks about a rematch with Alex Polizzi, he's like, "Oh, that sucked. I don't want to do that again." And I think that uh, Antonio Carlos Jr. felt that, and I feel like the judges saw him feel that. I was fairly confident I was going to get my hand raised.
How'd you celebrate this win? What food did you get into post fight?
Oh, what food didn't I get into? I'm a relatively small light heavyweight, so I get to eat a lot often. But you know, my roots go back to my home state of Wisconsin, and it sounds boring, but I end up drinking a lot of milk, eating a lot of cheese. You know how it goes.
Okay, yeah. Are you a pizza guy? I mean, that would be my go-to. If I'm cheating, I want pizza.
Pizza's a good one. However, it's a little more difficult now that I've made the move out to here in beautiful sunny Las Vegas because I'm so used to my Chicago pizza.
Oh, yeah.
So things like again, it makes me sound like a real snob, but I'm like, if we're doing pizza, I want it to be good pizza.
Fair enough. I get it. That makes sense, especially, with your roots being from Chicago. Let me ask you this. You say you're not a big light heavyweight. If you're not in camp and you're just kind of indulging, how heavy can you get? Can you get north of like 225, 230?
Okay. The heaviest I've ever been was a little under 230, but that's because I was post hip surgery and I could eat but couldn't move really at all. And I've said this before, I try to like I'm taking the week off, I got some stitches. But I'm back in the gym. I don't take a lot of time off. I'm working out and in a sport where you're moving and putting as much pressure on your body as mixed martial arts, getting north of 220 is already kind of difficult.
Yeah, no, for sure. Let me get your thoughts on the 205 playoffs here. Who do you see coming out as the victor? You got Impa taking on Silveira, Rob Wilkinson taking on Yagsher Muradov. Who do you ultimately see winning that?
You know, I think that maybe the betting lines will be on me, be standing with me, but I have a good feeling about Impa. Well, I have a good feeling about Impa right now compared to the bad feelings that he gave me during the first round of the tournament. The man is good. He blitz. He has great striking, and we saw that in his last. We saw that in the fights on Friday how he's able to take some and then dish it right back out. I think that Impa is a strong contender, and as returning champ, it'd be tough to kind of bet against him.
Fair enough. I'm with you. Tell me the importance of this win. I mean, you're coming off three losses. Granted, all three guys that you fought are beasts, right? So like you really can't hang your head at losing to guys like Yoel Romero and Impa. But How much pressure did you feel going into this fight? I mean, it's crucially important that you got the win. Do you feel like you kind of got like the monkey off your back?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, before I talk about going in everything 0-0, but we're in a career where, if you start on, I was on a three loss slide, people started like, hey, does he still have it? Hey, is this still for him? And I've been working a lot with not only getting better in the gym with coaches and trainers, but I really wanna measure out the importance of making sure that everything up here is okay. I see a sports performance therapist, and it's really been helping and really keeping my mind right. But if a win can help out, lessen her load a little bit, that's all better.
Yeah, a win always makes things better. Tell me, as far as your future goals and what it is you want to accomplish, like what do you see for you next? Like where can we see you by the end of, this calendar year, and what do you think you can accomplish here, moving forward?
You know, I tell my coaches at every camp I have that and anyone who's watched me fight, they're like, oh, the Polizzi, he's got heavy wrestling, and we're still working on the hands. And really, I try to make sure that that's not changing. I'm trying to get my hands and the grappling into one big cohesive unit. I'm going to keep working at Xtreme, helping guys get ready for their camps. If fights are coming my way, I mean, after the stitches come out, I'm more than happy to take them. But PFL's treated me well, and right now we're focused on making sure that hopefully we get in a next year's season. Uh, and my initial season here with the PFL, not everything a boy could dream for. We went 1-1 and we're kind of out of the playoff contention, but hopefully they'll want me back. And hopefully we can keep showing you and the rest of the fans that we're growing as a fighter and beating people up for fun.
So technically, right now you're a free agent.
That sounds like a question for my manager.
Okay.
You want to know what? I'm not exactly sure. I know that I'm not in contention for the PFL. I think that while I'm still under contract with them, I'm not hopping quite away, but I think that as playoffs develop a little further, that we may know where exactly I'm going to be next in the cage.
Okay. That makes sense. You mentioned Xtreme Couture. Tell me a little bit about, Coach Nick Sick, like the guys that you have around there. It's one of the best gyms in the world. Like, how have you evolved there?
It's crazy. And I mean, a lot of guys will, as they transfer from maybe regional gyms or their home gyms to somewhere a little bigger and to my words will kind of ring true for a lot of them, but um, being at Xtreme where everybody's a professional, everybody's on the same wavelength. There's a camp this week leading into the camp next week, leading to the other guy getting ready for PFL, UFC, Bellator, bare knuckle. It's a great environment where um, not only the fighters are all focused, and you can learn a little bit here from this guy and a little bit here from this guy. Even sometimes we'll have traveling guys getting ready for their camp here in Vegas. You can learn a little bit from them, but beyond that, it gets funneled down into even more technique with great coaches like Coach Nick Sick and Coach Nate Pettit and tons of other guys just making their way through there. It's there's just so much for you not to develop. You have to be doing something actively wrong.
Right. Yeah, I can only imagine. Tell me what it's like training and sparring with Sean Strickland. I'm sure you've gone plenty with him.
It's still pretty funny. I think one of my first times there, I'm getting ready on the bench, and Sean kind of looks over and he goes, "You, are you a pro?" I go, yeah. He goes, you wrestler? He kind of sees the ears, and I'm like, yeah. And he goes, okay, cool. You're going with me today. I was like, oh, okay. And since then, we've been getting a lot of work in. Um, and anyone who watches Sean knows that he's got some really great striking. And I told him, after a couple times training, he's like, you really got to teach me how to wrestle. I'm like, I'm more than willing to teach you how to wrestle if you teach me how to not get jabbed 12 times before I start moving my head. So it's been great.
Let me say that's actually a really good impression of Sean Strickland. Do you do that in the gym? You should. That would probably, I mean, he seems like he's got a good personality. That would probably go over well. You guys would probably even get closer.
Here's the thing, guys. Sean's good people. Like hanging out with him, and really, since I've been there and hearing some of the other guys that have trained with him, he's come into his lot, not only as a fighter gaining the middleweight championship this year, but also as a leader of the team, and an outspoken member. And again, it's it's one thing to have guys in the gym telling you what to do. A real leader is the one that's showing you the path to do it while he's in there with you. So it's nice.
Yeah, he said publicly very recently that he doesn't want to wait and fight Robert Whitaker. He wants to wait for the winner of Dricus and Izzy. But man, I sure would love to see that Whitaker fight. Analyze that for me if you don't mind. If that does happen next, and the winner of that matchup gets the next title shot, how do you see it playing out when you look at it objectively?
I this is gonna kind of show my ass a little bit, but I'm not really. I'm gonna go ahead and say I'm not really sure. I like watching Sean. I've cornered him a couple times, but outside of watching him specifically, watching his opponents for their wrestling, I'm not gonna say I'm not knowledgeable enough to know. However, I will say that no matter who Sean fights next, it's always a blast when Sean's in camp. He brings the energy, brings the fun, and it's always good to get some matches in with him. And every time he's like, Polizzi, I need you there to coach me in wrestling. I go, Sean, you haven't wrestled the past 4 matches. I don't know what you want me to tell you. But if I can make sure that he's keeping his anti-wrestling good, making sure nobody's taking him down, then I'll consider it a success.
All right. Polizzi, last question from me. If you could fight anyone next in PFL, is there someone that you want to get in there the most with? Is it, someone that whether it's a rematch or someone that you want to test yourself against? Like if the PFL matchmakers came to you and said, choose your next opponent, who would it be?
Hmm. Choose your next opponent for the PFL, guys. That's a tough one. Again, and as I said, I'm not watching a whole lot. Um, hmm, 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 hmm. Hmm. Yeah, it's gonna show my ass, but I'm not really. I don't really watch a whole lot. I'm content with fighting whoever they put in front of me. Of course, eventually, I think a rematch with input would be good for me, not only to kind of redeem myself, but to prove, hey, I have a lot more than what I showed in that previous fight. But yeah, I'm just I'm a good company man. I'm gonna fight who they tell me to fight.
Okay, fair enough. I love it. Well, Alex, listen, congrats on the win over Antonio. Pleasure interviewing you here for the first time today. Before we do actually sign off and close the interview, I want to give you the floor. If there's anything you want to plug, anyone you want to thank, floor is yours.
Oh yeah, of course. Got to thank the fans, everybody's watching. If you guys weren't tuning in, then we wouldn't as grown men get into a cage and beat each other up, which is always a blast. Um, got to thank my coaches and the everybody at Xtreme Couture. And I'd also like to give a shout out to a couple of my sponsors. There's the Rock Bar and Grill back in my hometown. When folks can't make it out to see me, fly out to beautiful Salt Lake. They can hang out in my hometown and watch on the bar there, and it's always great. And another Wisconsin company in Vortex Optics. Um, if there's any hunting slash fighting fans out there, make sure you're getting your scopes and all your optic stuff from Vortex. But beyond that, again, just thanking the fans. As I said, I wouldn't get to be here getting stitches, punching people for money without you guys.